My family called me the disappointment, who never amounted to anything. Then my brother's principal looked me straight in the eye during a parent-teacher conference and whispered in complete shock, "Ma'am, forgive me, but are you Dr. Elena Martinez, the school board president?" The silence that followed revealed everything my family had refused to see for the past 15 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights in Jefferson Middle School's main conference room cast an unforgiving glare across the polished table where my brother David sat fidgeting with his car keys. His 13-year-old son Miguel had been suspended for the third time this semester, and David's frustrated voice carried the familiar tone of someone accustomed to making demands, rather than accepting accountability. "This is ridiculous," David declared to Principal Sarah Chen, his voice rising with the entitled authority that had characterized his approach to every challenge throughout his adult life. "Miguel is a good kid. These teachers just don't understand how to handle students with energy. Maybe if this school actually invested in proper programs instead of punitive measures, we wouldn't be having this conversation." I sat quietly in the corner chair that David had reluctantly allowed me to occupy after I insisted on attending this meeting. For 12 years, I had been the reliable backup childcare provider, the aunt who picked Miguel up from school when his parents were too busy with their demanding careers, the one who helped with homework and attended school performances when work commitments prevented his parents from participating. Yet in family discussions about Miguel's education, my opinions carried no weight, because everyone knew I was the sister who had never quite succeeded at anything important. Principal Chen maintained her professional composure despite David's increasingly aggressive tone. She was a woman in her early 50s with graying temples and the patient demeanor of someone who had navigated thousands of difficult conversations with defensive parents. Her credentials were impressive: a master's degree in educational administration from Stanford, 15 years of classroom teaching experience, and a reputation for turning around struggling schools through innovative leadership approaches. "Mr. Martinez," Principal Chen replied with measured calm, "Miguel is certainly an energetic child with significant potential. However, his behavior patterns indicate he would benefit from additional support structures that we are prepared to provide. The suspension is not punitive, but rather an opportunity to implement a comprehensive intervention plan that addresses the underlying factors contributing to his classroom difficulties." David scoffed with the dismissive arrogance that had characterized his interactions with educators throughout Miguel's academic career. "Intervention plan? He doesn't need intervention. He needs teachers who understand that some kids learn differently. Maybe if this district hired more qualified staff instead of settling for whoever applies, these problems would resolve themselves." The insult hung in the air like a challenge. Principal Chen's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but her professional training prevented any visible reaction to David's deliberately inflammatory comment. I felt my own anger rising at his casual disrespect for the dedicated professionals who had been working tirelessly to support Miguel's academic and social development, despite his parents' consistent resistance to recommended strategies. "David," I interjected quietly, "perhaps we should focus on what Miguel needs rather than criticizing the people who are trying to help him." My brother turned toward me with the patronizing expression that had become his standard response to any suggestion I offered regarding his son's education or well-being. "Elena, I appreciate you being here, but this is really a conversation between Miguel's parents and the school administration. You don't have children of your own, so you might not fully understand the complexities involved in these situations." The dismissal was swift and absolute, delivered with the casual cruelty that had characterized our family dynamics for over a decade. David had perfected the art of invalidating my contributions to family discussions by referencing my personal life choices as evidence of my fundamental incompetence in matters requiring real wisdom or authority. According to family consensus, my opinions about education, child development, or institutional policy were inherently suspect because I had chosen career advancement over traditional domestic responsibilities. Principal Chen's eyes flickered between David and me, her expression revealing growing awareness that family dynamics were complicating an already challenging conversation. She had undoubtedly encountered similar situations, where parents undermined each other during crucial discussions about student support services, but something in her demeanor suggested she was processing additional information beyond the immediate conflict. "Actually," Principal Chen said carefully, her voice carrying a subtle shift in tone that suggested internal recognition or dawning awareness, I believe Elena's perspective might be particularly valuable in this situation. May I ask what your professional background is, Ms. Martinez? The question landed with unexpected weight in the small conference room. David's confident expression wavered slightly, as he realized that Principal Chen was directing specific attention toward the family member he had just dismissed as irrelevant to serious educational discussions. I felt a familiar internal conflict between maintaining family harmony by downplaying my achievements and providing honest information that might actually benefit Miguel's educational prospects. I work in educational administration, I replied simply, hoping to provide sufficient context, without creating unnecessary tension with David, whose ego could not tolerate being overshadowed by his younger sister's professional accomplishments. Principal Chen leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing with what appeared to be growing recognition. Educational administration at what level? Are you perhaps involved with curriculum development or policy implementation? The questions were becoming more specific, and I could see David's discomfort increasing as Principal Chen's attention remained focused on obtaining details about my professional responsibilities rather than returning to discussions about Miguel's behavioral challenges. The dynamic in the room was shifting in ways that made my brother visibly uncomfortable, though he could not yet articulate the source of his unease. I serve on the district's strategic planning committee, I answered carefully, still attempting to minimize potential family conflict, while providing accurate information about my professional involvement in educational policy and institutional management. Principal Chen's eyebrows rose slightly, and she tilted her head with the expression of someone trying to reconcile conflicting pieces of information. The Strategic Planning Committee was not a casual volunteer position, but rather a high-level policy group that included only the most experienced and influential leaders within the district's administrative hierarchy. Membership required extensive credentials, demonstrated expertise in educational management, and recognition by peers as someone capable of guiding institutional decisions that affected thousands of students and hundreds of faculty members. The Strategic Planning Committee reports directly to the school board, Principal Chen observed, her voice carrying increasing interest and what sounded like dawning comprehension. That committee includes some of our district's most accomplished educational leaders. How long have you been serving in that capacity? David interrupted before I could respond, his voice carrying forced casualness that barely concealed growing irritation with the conversation's unexpected direction. Elena has always been involved in various volunteer activities. She enjoys staying busy with different projects. But perhaps we could return to discussing Miguel's specific situation and what concrete steps the school plans to implement to address his behavioral concerns. The attempt to redirect attention was transparent and desperate, but it revealed David's fundamental misunderstanding of both my professional role and the implications of Principal Chen's increasingly focused questioning. He genuinely believed that my involvement in district administration was equivalent to casual volunteer work because accepting the reality of my professional achievements would require acknowledging that his dismissive treatment of my opinions had been both inappropriate and counterproductive. Principal Chen's expression underwent a subtle but unmistakable transformation as pieces of recognition began falling into place. She studied my face with the intensity of someone trying to reconcile a familiar appearance with an unexpected context. The conference room fell silent, except for the distant sounds of students transitioning between classes in the hallway outside. Ms. Martinez, Principal Chen said slowly, her voice carrying a mixture of growing certainty and professional embarrassment. I need to ask you a direct question, and I apologize if this seems unusual given the circumstances. The formality of her statement created immediate tension in the small space. David shifted uncomfortably in his chair, sensing that the conversation was moving in directions beyond his control or understanding. I felt my pulse quicken as I recognized the moment when carefully maintained boundaries between my professional and personal identities were about to collapse in ways that would fundamentally alter family dynamics. Are you Dr. Elena Martinez, who serves as president of the Riverside County School Board? The question detonated in the conference room with the force of a carefully placed explosive device. David's face underwent a series of rapid transformations: confusion, disbelief, recognition, and finally, a mixture of shock and profound embarrassment that rendered him temporarily speechless. His mouth opened and closed several times without producing sound, like someone trying to process information that contradicted everything he believed he understood about reality. Yes, I replied simply. My voice steadied despite the internal turbulence created by watching 15 years of family assumptions crumble in real time. I have served as board president for the past 3 years. Principal Chen's reaction was immediate and profound. She straightened in her chair with the posture of someone who had just realized she was conducting a parent-teacher conference with one of the most powerful educational leaders in the entire regional system. The woman sitting quietly in the corner, dismissed by her brother as someone whose opinions about education were irrelevant due to her lack of parenting experience, was actually the elected official responsible for overseeing policy decisions that affected over 40,000 students across 67 schools. "Dr. Martinez," Principal Chen said, her voice now carrying the formal respect accorded to high-ranking officials, "I had no idea. I should have recognized you from board meetings, but seeing you in this context..." She paused, clearly struggling to process the implications of the revelation. David's silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds, an eternity in a conversation that had suddenly revealed the complete inadequacy of his understanding regarding his sister's professional accomplishments and institutional authority. The brother who had just dismissed my educational opinions as irrelevant was now forced to confront the reality that I held the highest elected position in the district's governance structure. "You're the school board president?" David's voice emerged as barely more than a whisper, carrying disbelief that bordered on denial. "That's impossible. You never mentioned. How could you be the board president?" The question revealed the depth of his fundamental misunderstanding about both my professional life and the nature of educational leadership. David had spent years assuming that my volunteer activities and various projects were equivalent to casual community involvement, rather than recognizing them as the foundation for a career in educational administration that had culminated in the highest elected position within the district's leadership hierarchy. "The position requires considerable time and expertise," I explained gently, trying to process my own emotions while helping him understand the scope of responsibilities that I had been managing while serving as Miguel's backup childcare provider. Board presidents are responsible for overseeing annual budgets exceeding $200 million, implementing state and federal educational mandates, evaluating superintendent performance, and establishing policies that affect every student and faculty member in the district. Principal Chen nodded emphatically, her professional respect now fully engaged as she addressed someone whose policy decisions directly influenced her daily work environment. "Dr. Martinez has led some of our most innovative initiatives, the social-emotional learning programs, the restorative justice disciplinary policies, the early intervention strategies for at-risk students. Those all emerged from her leadership during board deliberations." The irony was profound and painful. The educational strategies that Principal Chen was crediting to my leadership were precisely the types of interventions that could benefit Miguel. Yet David had spent years dismissing my suggestions about his son's academic and behavioral needs because he believed I lacked relevant expertise or authority to offer meaningful guidance. David's face continued cycling through emotions as he struggled to reconcile his long-held assumptions about his sister's competence and achievements with the undeniable reality of her professional recognition and institutional authority. The cognitive dissonance was visible and acute, manifesting in physical discomfort as he shifted repeatedly in his chair. "But you never said anything," David protested weakly, his voice carrying the petulance of someone who felt deceived, despite never having asked relevant questions about my professional responsibilities. "All these years, you never mentioned that you were involved in running the school district." The accusation was both accurate and completely unfair. I had indeed avoided discussing my professional achievements during family gatherings, but this discretion had been motivated by years of experiencing David's need to dominate conversations and his discomfort with any recognition that might overshadow his own accomplishments in commercial real estate development. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "You never asked," I replied simply, the truth of the statement hanging in the air between us. Family conversations typically focus on your business success and Maria's medical practice. Educational administration isn't usually considered sufficiently interesting or lucrative to warrant detailed discussion. Principal Chen's expression revealed her growing understanding of the family dynamics that had prevented her from recognizing one of the district's most influential leaders during previous interactions at school events. The quiet woman who attended Miguel's academic conferences and volunteered for field trip supervision had been operating under a deliberately maintained low profile that protected family relationships at the cost of professional recognition. "Dr. Martinez," Principal Chen said, her tone now carrying appropriate deference while addressing someone whose policy decisions influenced her professional evaluation and career advancement. "I want to assure you that Miguel's situation is receiving our full attention. Given your expertise in educational intervention strategies, I would welcome your input on developing the most effective support plan for his specific needs." The offer represented a complete reversal of the power dynamics that had characterized the meeting's opening moments. Principal Chen was now soliciting guidance from someone she recognized as possessing superior knowledge and authority regarding educational best practices, while David found himself relegated to the role of passive observer in discussions about his own son's academic future. The transformation was complete and irreversible. The family gathering that had begun with David's dismissive treatment of my opinions had evolved into a professional consultation where I was being asked to provide expert guidance on implementing evidence-based interventions for student behavioral support. The sister whose childcare contributions had been accepted without acknowledgement of her professional qualifications was now revealed as someone whose expertise exceeded that of everyone else in the room. David sat in stunned silence as Principal Chen and I began discussing Miguel's specific needs within the framework of district-wide policies and research-based intervention strategies. The conversation moved beyond the immediate behavioral concerns to address systemic factors including classroom environment modifications, individualized learning accommodations, family communication protocols, and long-term academic planning that would support Miguel's social and emotional development through his remaining middle school years. The meeting concluded with comprehensive action plans and follow-up schedules that reflected both Principal Chen's professional commitment to student success and her newfound awareness of my institutional authority and expertise. As we gathered materials and prepared to leave, David remained largely silent, still processing the implications of discoveries that had fundamentally altered his understanding of family hierarchy and professional competence. Walking to the parking lot after the meeting, David finally found his voice to ask the question that had been building throughout the previous hour. "Elena, how long have you been the board president, and why didn't anyone in the family know about this?" The questions revealed the depth of his bewilderment and the extent to which family communication patterns had prevented recognition of my professional development and achievements. The assumption that important information would be automatically shared and celebrated had never been tested against the reality of family dynamics that consistently prioritized David's accomplishments, while treating my career progress as background information unworthy of detailed attention. "I was elected to the board 8 years ago," I explained as we reached our respective vehicles. "I was selected as president 3 years ago by unanimous vote of my colleagues. The position is public information, David. Board meetings are televised, election results are published, and policy decisions are covered in local media. The information has always been available to anyone interested in accessing it." The response highlighted the uncomfortable truth that family members had never demonstrated sufficient interest in my professional life to discover information that was readily available through multiple public sources. David's surprise reflected not deliberate concealment on my part, but rather the absence of genuine curiosity about my career development and institutional involvement. "But this changes everything," David said, his voice carrying a mixture of admiration and embarrassment that suggested he was beginning to understand the implications of his previous dismissive behavior. "You're one of the most important people in education in this entire region. Miguel is lucky to have an aunt with your expertise and influence." The recognition was gratifying but also bittersweet, representing acknowledgement that had arrived only after undeniable public confirmation of my professional status and authority. The years of dismissed suggestions, overlooked insights, and casual disregard for my educational opinions had been based on fundamental misunderstandings about my qualifications and expertise, rather than accurate assessments of my competence or knowledge. "Miguel has always been lucky to have family members who care about his success," I replied diplomatically, choosing to focus on future collaboration rather than past misunderstandings. "The important thing now is implementing the support strategies that will help him thrive academically and socially." As I drove home from Jefferson Middle School, I reflected on the afternoon's events and their broader implications for family relationships and professional identity management. The revelation had been accidental and unexpected, emerging from circumstances that I had not anticipated or planned. Yet the impact was profound and irreversible, fundamentally altering family dynamics in ways that would influence future interactions and decision-making processes. The choice to maintain separation between my professional achievements and family relationships had been motivated by genuine desire to preserve harmony and avoid conflicts that might emerge from challenging established hierarchies and assumptions. However, the afternoon's events demonstrated that such separation could also prevent family members from accessing expertise and guidance that might benefit their most important decisions and relationships. The transformation in Principal Chen's behavior illustrated how professional recognition could influence interpersonal dynamics in ways that enhanced effectiveness and mutual respect. Her shift from polite tolerance to engaged collaboration reflected the power of credentialed expertise to command attention and influence decision-making processes within institutional contexts. Yet the experience also raised uncomfortable questions about the conditional nature of respect and recognition within family systems. David's newfound appreciation for my opinions about Miguel's education emerged only after external validation of my professional competence, suggesting that family acknowledgement of individual achievements might depend more on public recognition than on demonstrated knowledge or consistent contribution to shared goals. The evening that followed brought telephone calls from other family members who had learned about the afternoon's revelation through David's excited sharing of his discovery. The conversations revealed varying degrees of awareness regarding my professional responsibilities, with some relatives expressing surprise, while others admitted they had always suspected my school volunteer work involved more substantial responsibilities than they had previously understood. Each conversation required navigation of complex emotions, including family members' embarrassment about their previous assumptions, excitement about having a school board president in the family, and curiosity about why I had not been more forthcoming about my professional achievements and public recognition. The questions were reasonable but challenging to answer honestly without creating additional family conflicts or suggesting deliberate deception. The truth was that opportunities to discuss my professional development had been limited by family communication patterns that prioritized certain types of achievements while treating others as background information unworthy of sustained attention or celebration. The revelation at Jefferson Middle School had been transformative but also uncomfortable, forcing recognition of how professional identity compartmentalization could both protect family relationships and prevent family members from accessing valuable expertise and guidance. The path forward would require careful navigation of changed dynamics, while maintaining authentic commitment to collective family success and individual professional integrity. The story of that afternoon would become family legend, retold at gatherings as evidence of hidden achievements and unexpected revelations. But for me, it represented something more profound: the recognition that authentic relationships require honest communication about our complete identities, including professional accomplishments that might challenge existing family hierarchies or assumptions about individual competence and authority. The quiet satisfaction of professional recognition was meaningful, but the opportunity to apply my expertise in service of Miguel's educational success was far more valuable. The revelation had created possibilities for deeper family collaboration and more effective advocacy for a child whose academic and social development would benefit from comprehensive support and evidence-based intervention strategies. The transformation was complete, irreversible, and ultimately positive for everyone involved, despite the temporary discomfort created by challenging long-held assumptions about family roles and individual capabilities. The scholarship letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in March, delivered to a cramped apartment in East San Antonio, where 17-year-old Elena Martinez shared a bedroom with her younger sister Carmen, while their parents worked double shifts to keep their family housed and fed. The envelope bore the official seal of the University of Texas at Austin, and Elena's hands trembled as she carefully opened what she hoped would be confirmation of her acceptance into the educational opportunity that represented her only viable path toward professional advancement and economic mobility. Elena's father, Miguel Martinez Sr., worked nights at a manufacturing plant, assembling automotive components for 12 hours at a stretch, while her mother, Rosa, cleaned office buildings during early morning hours before returning home to care for 3 children, and manage household responsibilities on a budget that required constant creativity and sacrifice. The Martinez family lived paycheck to paycheck, with no savings available for college tuition or expenses that extended beyond immediate survival needs. The scholarship Elena had applied for represented far more than financial assistance for higher education. It constituted validation of 4 years of academic excellence achieved despite circumstances that made concentrated study challenging and extracurricular involvement nearly impossible. Elena had maintained a perfect grade point average while working 20 hours per week at a local grocery store, contributing her earnings to family expenses while completing homework assignments in the employee break room during brief meal breaks. The letter confirmed Elena's acceptance into the university's Competitive Education Scholars Program, which provided full tuition coverage, housing allowances, and professional development opportunities for students committed to pursuing careers in public education. The program specifically targeted first-generation college students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds who demonstrated exceptional academic potential and genuine commitment to educational equity and social justice. Elena's mother cried when she read the scholarship details, understanding that her daughter had achieved something that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of their family's economic prospects and social mobility. Rosa had completed only 8th grade before family circumstances forced her to seek employment, and she had spent decades dreaming that her children might access educational opportunities that had been unavailable to previous generations. The transition from East San Antonio to the University of Texas campus in Austin represented more than geographic relocation. Elena found herself navigating cultural and economic differences that created daily reminders of her outsider status among students whose families had provided them with advantages she could barely comprehend. Her classmates discussed spring break vacations to European countries, while Elena worked campus jobs during academic breaks to earn money for textbooks and basic living expenses. Despite these challenges, Elena excelled academically from her first semester. Her professors recognized her exceptional analytical capabilities and genuine passion for educational theory and practice. She demonstrated particular strength in understanding how socioeconomic factors influence student achievement, drawing from personal experience to provide insights that enriched classroom discussions and academic research projects. Dr. Margaret Thornton, a distinguished professor of educational policy who had spent decades studying achievement gaps and institutional barriers, became Elena's primary mentor during her undergraduate years. Dr. Thornton recognized that Elena possessed both intellectual capability and authentic understanding of educational challenges that could not be learned from textbooks or theoretical frameworks alone. Under Dr. Thornton's guidance, Elena began conducting research on effective intervention strategies for students from low-income families. Her undergraduate thesis examined how school nutrition programs, after-school tutoring initiatives, and family engagement policies could address academic performance disparities that reflected broader social and economic inequalities rather than individual student capabilities or motivation. The research required Elena to interview dozens of students, parents, and educators across multiple school districts, documenting stories of resilience and struggle that mirrored her own family's experiences. The project strengthened her conviction that educational leadership could serve as a powerful tool for addressing systemic injustices, while creating opportunities for individuals to transcend circumstances beyond their control. Elena's commitment to academic excellence never wavered, despite the additional challenges created by her economic circumstances and cultural adjustment requirements. She graduated summa cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Education, earning recognition as the outstanding senior in her academic program. The achievement represented validation of her intellectual capabilities and preparation for graduate study in educational administration. The decision to pursue a master's degree in educational leadership required Elena to decline immediate employment opportunities that would have provided income to support her family's ongoing financial needs. The choice represented a calculated investment in long-term professional development that would ultimately enable greater service to underserved student populations. But it also extended the period during which Elena could not contribute substantially to her family's economic stability. Dr. Thornton helped Elena secure a graduate assistantship that provided tuition remission and a modest stipend in exchange for research support and teaching responsibilities. The position allowed Elena to gain practical experience in educational administration, while continuing her academic preparation for leadership roles within public school systems. Elena's graduate coursework focused on organizational management, policy analysis, curriculum development, and community engagement strategies. She excelled in courses that required synthesis of theoretical knowledge with practical application, demonstrating particular strength in developing innovative solutions to complex institutional challenges. Her master's thesis examined the effectiveness of distributed leadership models in improving academic outcomes for students in high-poverty schools. The research involved extensive fieldwork in 3 urban school districts, where Elena observed administrative practices and interviewed principals, teachers, and community stakeholders about their experiences with different management approaches. The thesis findings indicated that schools with collaborative leadership structures that engaged teachers, parents, and community members in decision-making processes achieved significantly better student outcomes than institutions that relied on traditional hierarchical management models. Elena's research contributed new insights to academic literature while providing practical recommendations for educational leaders seeking to improve institutional effectiveness. Dr. Thornton encouraged Elena to present her research findings at national conferences, where her work received recognition from established scholars and practicing administrators. These presentations helped Elena build professional networks and establish her reputation as a thoughtful researcher, capable of bridging the gap between academic theory and practical implementation in real-world educational settings. Elena completed her master's degree with a perfect academic record while serving as president of the Graduate Student Association and coordinator of a volunteer tutoring program that provided academic support to elementary students in economically disadvantaged neighborhoods. Her leadership experiences demonstrated her ability to manage complex projects while maintaining authentic commitment to serving others. The transition from graduate school to professional practice represented Elena's first opportunity to apply her academic preparation within an actual school district. She accepted a position as assistant principal at Roosevelt Elementary School in the Riverside County School District, an institution serving a predominantly low-income student population with significant academic achievement challenges. Roosevelt Elementary had struggled for years with low test scores, high teacher turnover, and limited family engagement, despite the dedicated efforts of well-intentioned faculty and staff. The previous administration had implemented various reform initiatives without achieving sustainable improvements in student outcomes or school culture. Elena's appointment as assistant principal represented a calculated risk by Superintendent Dr. James Sullivan, who recognized that traditional administrative approaches had proven insufficient for addressing the complex challenges facing schools in high-poverty communities. Dr. Sullivan believed that Elena's combination of academic preparation, research expertise, and authentic understanding of socioeconomic barriers positioned her to contribute meaningfully to school improvement efforts. Elena's first year at Roosevelt Elementary focused on building relationships with teachers, students, and families, while conducting systematic analysis of existing programs and policies. She spent countless hours observing classroom instruction, reviewing student assessment data, and meeting with parents to understand their perspectives on their children's educational experiences and needs. The assessment revealed that many of Roosevelt's challenges stemmed from inadequate communication between school and community, rather than insufficient resources or incompetent staff. Teachers were implementing evidence-based instructional strategies, but families felt disconnected from academic processes and uncertain about how to support their children's learning at home. Elena initiated a comprehensive family engagement program that included bilingual communication materials, parent education workshops, and flexible meeting schedules that accommodated working parents' availability. She also established after-school tutoring programs staffed by volunteer high school students and community members who could provide academic support while serving as positive role models for elementary students. The initiatives required Elena to work extended hours while learning to navigate institutional politics and bureaucratic constraints that sometimes impeded innovative programming. She discovered that meaningful change required patience, persistence, and diplomatic skills that had not been emphasized during her academic preparation but were essential for effective leadership in complex organizational environments. Elena's efforts began producing measurable results within 2 years. Roosevelt Elementary's test scores improved significantly, teacher retention rates increased, and family engagement in school activities expanded dramatically. The success attracted attention from district administrators and earned Elena recognition as an emerging leader capable of implementing effective reform strategies. Superintendent Sullivan recommended Elena for participation in the state's Educational Leadership Academy, a competitive professional development program designed to prepare exceptional administrators for district-level positions. The academy provided advanced training in policy analysis, budget management, strategic planning, and community relations while connecting participants with experienced mentors and peer networks. Elena's academy experience exposed her to educational challenges and opportunities that extended beyond individual school improvement to encompass system-wide reform initiatives. She learned to analyze complex policy environments, develop comprehensive strategic plans, and build coalitions among diverse stakeholder groups with varying interests and priorities. The academy culminated in a capstone project that required participants to design and present a district-wide initiative addressing a significant educational challenge. Elena's project focused on creating comprehensive support systems for English language learners, drawing from her research background and practical experience to propose evidence-based interventions that could improve academic outcomes while honoring students' cultural identities and linguistic assets. Elena's capstone presentation impressed academy faculty and invited guests, including several school board members who recognized her potential for district-level leadership. The project demonstrated her ability to synthesize complex information, develop innovative solutions, and communicate effectively with diverse audiences, including educators, policymakers, and community representatives. Following her academy graduation, Elena was promoted to principal of Lincoln Middle School, a larger institution with more complex challenges including diverse student populations, extensive faculty, and multiple program offerings. The promotion represented recognition of her demonstrated effectiveness while providing opportunities to expand her leadership skills and institutional impact. Lincoln Middle School served students from varied socioeconomic backgrounds, creating unique opportunities and challenges for educational programming. Elena recognized that effective leadership required understanding and addressing the distinct needs of different student populations, while maintaining high expectations and supportive environments for all learners. Elena's principalship focused on developing collaborative leadership structures that engaged teachers in decision-making processes, while establishing clear accountability systems for student achievement. She implemented regular professional learning communities where faculty collaborated on curriculum development, assessment strategies, and intervention planning for struggling students. Under Elena's leadership, Lincoln Middle School became a model institution within the district, attracting visitors from other school systems who wanted to observe successful practices and learn from innovative programming approaches. The school's academic achievements and positive culture earned recognition from state education officials and professional associations. Elena's success as a principal positioned her for consideration for district-level administrative roles that would enable broader influence on educational policy and practice. Superintendent Sullivan approached her about applying for the position of Director of Curriculum and Instruction, a role that would involve overseeing academic programming across all district schools. The promotion to district administration represented a significant career advancement, but also required Elena to transition from direct school leadership to system-wide coordination and support. The role involved working with multiple principals, developing district policies, managing curriculum adoption processes, and representing the district in state and regional educational forums. Elena's effectiveness in the director position exceeded expectations, as she successfully implemented comprehensive professional development programs, streamlined curriculum alignment processes, and established data analysis systems that improved instructional decision-making throughout the district. Her work earned recognition from state education officials and positioned her as a rising leader in regional educational circles. The combination of Elena's academic preparation, practical experience, and demonstrated results created opportunities for involvement in policy development beyond her immediate professional responsibilities. She was invited to serve on state committees addressing educational equity, curriculum standards, and assessment policies that would influence educational practice throughout the region. Elena's committee work exposed her to the political dimensions of educational leadership, while providing opportunities to influence policy decisions that affected thousands of students and educators. She learned to navigate complex political environments while maintaining focus on evidence-based practices and student-centered decision-making. The visibility and recognition Elena gained through her professional achievements and policy involvement led to encouragement from colleagues and community members to consider seeking elected office on the school board. The suggestion initially surprised Elena, who had focused on administrative career advancement rather than electoral politics. However, Elena recognized that school board membership would provide opportunities to influence educational policy from a governance perspective, while maintaining authentic commitment to student achievement and educational equity. The position would enable her to apply her comprehensive understanding of educational systems while representing community interests in institutional decision-making processes. Elena's decision to seek school board election required careful consideration of the personal and professional commitments involved in combining administrative responsibilities with elected governance duties. She consulted with mentors, family members, and colleagues before concluding that the opportunity to serve in elected capacity aligned with her fundamental commitment to educational improvement and social justice. The campaign for school board election challenged Elena to communicate her vision and qualifications to diverse community audiences while building coalitions among stakeholders with varying perspectives on educational priorities and resource allocation. She conducted extensive community outreach, attended neighborhood meetings, and participated in candidate forums that required her to articulate positions on complex policy issues. Elena's campaign emphasized her practical experience in educational leadership, her research-based approach to problem-solving, and her authentic commitment to serving all students regardless of their backgrounds or circumstances. She advocated for evidence-based policies, transparent governance, and inclusive decision-making processes that would engage families and community members in educational planning. The election results validated Elena's approach and message, as she received strong support from diverse constituencies, including parents, educators, and community organizations. Her victory represented recognition of her qualifications and vision, while providing mandate to pursue educational improvements through governance leadership. Elena's transition from district administrator to elected school board member required adjustment to different responsibilities and accountability structures. As a board member, she would focus on policy development, budget oversight, and superintendent evaluation rather than direct program implementation and staff supervision. The role demanded new skills in collaborative governance, public communication, and political negotiation, while maintaining Elena's core commitment to student-centered decision-making and educational excellence. She approached the transition with characteristic preparation and determination, studying governance best practices and seeking mentorship from experienced board members. Elena's early months as a school board member demonstrated her ability to contribute effectively to governance processes, while maintaining positive relationships with fellow board members, district administration, and community stakeholders. Her combination of educational expertise and collaborative approach earned respect from colleagues and positioned her for future leadership opportunities within the board structure. The foundation years of Elena's career had prepared her comprehensively for the challenges and opportunities that would define her service as an educational leader and elected official. Her journey from scholarship recipient to school board member illustrated the transformative power of educational opportunity, while demonstrating how individual achievement could serve broader purposes of institutional improvement and social progress. Elena's story represented hope for other first-generation college students and proof that economic disadvantage need not limit professional achievement or community contribution. Her success had been earned through consistent excellence, strategic preparation, and unwavering commitment to serving others while pursuing meaningful goals that transcended personal advancement. The experiences that shaped Elena's professional development would inform every decision she made as a school board member and eventual board president. Her authentic understanding of educational challenges, combined with proven leadership capabilities and genuine commitment to equity, positioned her to advocate effectively for policies and practices that would benefit all students while addressing systemic barriers that prevented some children from achieving their full potential. The anonymous letter arrived on a Friday afternoon in October, slipped under Elena's office door at the district administration building while she attended a curriculum committee meeting across town. The envelope bore no return address and contained 3 pages of meticulously documented accusations that would fundamentally alter her understanding of loyalty, family dynamics, and the dangerous intersection between professional achievement and personal relationships. Elena discovered the letter upon returning to her office at 6 o'clock, after most district employees had departed for the weekend. The building's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the typed pages, as she read allegations that someone with intimate knowledge of her personal life and professional responsibilities had compiled a detailed case questioning her ethical conduct as Director of Curriculum and Instruction. The accusations were sophisticated and specific, suggesting financial improprieties in curriculum adoption processes, conflicts of interest in vendor selection decisions, and violations of district policies regarding professional development expenditures. Each allegation included precise dates, dollar amounts, and references to specific meetings and decisions that had occurred during Elena's tenure in the director position. The most devastating aspect of the accusations was their foundation in partial truths that had been deliberately distorted to suggest improper conduct. Elena recognized the source material for each allegation, understanding exactly how legitimate administrative decisions had been reframed to appear suspicious or unethical when stripped of appropriate context and procedural justification. The curriculum adoption process that was characterized as financially improper had actually involved a comprehensive evaluation of multiple textbook publishers, with Elena leading a committee that included teachers, administrators, and community representatives in systematic analysis of educational materials. The final selection had been based on rigorous criteria including academic effectiveness, cultural inclusivity, and cost efficiency, with all decisions documented through official committee minutes and board presentations. The vendor selection decisions described as conflicts of interest had been made through established district procurement procedures that included multiple stakeholders and transparent evaluation criteria. Elena had recused herself from any discussions involving companies where she had previous professional relationships, and all contracts had been approved through proper channels with appropriate documentation and legal review. The professional development expenditures, characterized as policy violations, had been authorized through proper budget processes and had resulted in measurable improvements in teacher effectiveness and student achievement. Elena had maintained detailed records of all expenses and had regularly reported on program outcomes to the superintendent and school board through required monitoring and evaluation procedures. However, the anonymous letter presented these administrative decisions through a lens of suspicion and impropriety that could damage Elena's professional reputation despite the lack of actual wrongdoing. The accusations were crafted to exploit the complexity of educational administration in ways that would make investigation time-consuming and potentially embarrassing, regardless of ultimate vindication. Elena spent the weekend reviewing her files and documentation, confirming that every decision referenced in the accusations had been made through proper procedures with appropriate authorization and documentation. Her administrative practices had consistently exceeded district requirements for transparency and accountability, yet she understood that defending against well-crafted allegations would require extensive time and resources while creating uncertainty about her professional standing. The psychological impact of the accusations was profound and disorienting. Elena had spent her career building a reputation for ethical leadership and evidence-based decision-making, yet someone with access to confidential information about her work had deliberately crafted allegations designed to undermine that reputation through distortion and misrepresentation. Monday morning brought a meeting with Superintendent Dr. James Sullivan, who had received a copy of the anonymous letter through the district's general mail system. Dr. Sullivan approached the situation with professional caution, understanding that any allegations against senior administrators required thorough investigation regardless of his personal confidence in Elena's integrity and competence. The investigation process was methodical and invasive, requiring Elena to provide detailed documentation for every decision referenced in the accusations while submitting to interviews with district auditors and legal counsel. The process consumed weeks of Elena's time and attention while creating an atmosphere of suspicion that affected her relationships with colleagues and subordinates. Elena's family became aware of the investigation through local media coverage that characterized the allegations as questions about financial practices in the district's curriculum department. The reporting was careful to avoid specific accusations while creating public awareness of potential problems that required official investigation and resolution. David's response to the media coverage revealed family dynamics that Elena had not previously recognized or understood. Rather than offering support during a challenging professional situation, David expressed concern about how the investigation might affect his own business reputation and social standing within the community, where his real estate practice depended on maintaining positive relationships with influential residents. The conversation occurred during a family dinner at their parents' home, where Elena had expected to receive emotional support and encouragement during a difficult period. Instead, David questioned whether Elena's quote to educational reform might have created unnecessary conflicts that had motivated someone to file complaints against her. The suggestion that Elena bore responsibility for the attacks against her professional reputation reflected David's fundamental misunderstanding of both the nature of educational leadership and the dynamics that had led to the anonymous accusations. His comment revealed assumptions about appropriate behavior for women in leadership positions and expectations that Elena should prioritize conflict avoidance over institutional improvement. Elena's sister-in-law Maria, a successful physician who had navigated her own challenges in male-dominated professional environments, offered a different perspective that proved equally troubling. Maria suggested that Elena might benefit from, quote, keeping a lower profile and focusing on, quote, building consensus rather than pushing controversial initiatives that might create political problems. The advice reflected well-intentioned concern, but demonstrated limited understanding of the systemic changes required to address educational inequities and achievement gaps. Elena's initiatives had been controversial only among stakeholders who benefited from existing practices that disadvantaged certain student populations, while receiving strong support from educators and families who recognized the need for evidence-based reforms. The investigation concluded after 6 weeks with complete vindication of Elena's professional conduct and administrative practices. The district's independent auditors found no evidence of financial impropriety, conflicts of interest, or policy violations, while documenting that Elena's decisions had consistently followed established procedures with appropriate authorization and oversight. However, the vindication came with private information that proved more devastating than the original accusations. Dr. Sullivan informed Elena that the investigation had identified the source of the anonymous letter through analysis of the detailed information it contained about confidential administrative processes and private family discussions. The letter had been compiled by someone with access to both Elena's professional files and intimate knowledge of her family relationships and personal insecurities. The investigation revealed that David had been the source of personal information that had been combined with distorted professional details to create accusations designed to damage Elena's career and reputation. The revelation was crushing and disorienting, forcing Elena to confront the reality that her own brother had deliberately attempted to undermine her professional achievements through false accusations and character assassination. The betrayal was particularly devastating because it had been motivated not by principled disagreement with her policies, but by personal resentment about her professional success and public recognition. Dr. Sullivan explained that David had provided personal information to Patricia Hendricks, a former district employee who had been terminated for performance issues during Elena's tenure as director. Patricia had combined David's insider knowledge with her own professional grievances to create accusations that appeared credible due to their inclusion of accurate personal details that only family members could have known. The collaboration between David and Patricia represented a calculated attempt to destroy Elena's career through false accusations that exploited both professional vulnerabilities and family intimacy. The attack had been designed to create maximum damage regardless of Elena's actual conduct or professional competence. Elena's initial response was shock and disbelief, followed by profound grief about the destruction of family trust and loyalty that she had assumed were fundamental and unshakable. The recognition that David had betrayed her professional interests to satisfy his own psychological needs created emotional wounds that would require months to process and years to fully understand. The practical implications of the revelation were complex and challenging. Elena could not publicly defend herself against the accusations without exposing David's role in their creation, which would damage family relationships and potentially create legal complications. She was forced to accept vindication through official channels while maintaining public silence about the personal dimensions of the attack against her. Elena's parents were devastated by the discovery of David's involvement in the accusations against their daughter. Rosa Martinez had spent decades supporting both children's professional development and could not comprehend how sibling rivalry had evolved into deliberate sabotage of Elena's career and reputation. The family crisis required navigation of complex emotions, including anger, disappointment, betrayal, and confusion about how to rebuild relationships that had been fundamentally damaged by David's actions. Elena's parents insisted on family meetings to address the conflict, but David initially refused to acknowledge wrongdoing or accept responsibility for the consequences of his choices. Elena's response to the betrayal reflected her fundamental character and values. Rather than seeking revenge or public vindication, she focused on understanding the psychological factors that had motivated David's behavior while protecting family relationships from further damage through public exposure of his actions. The experience taught Elena profound lessons about the intersection between personal and professional life, the dangers of assuming unconditional family loyalty, and the importance of maintaining emotional boundaries that protected professional effectiveness from personal conflicts and disappointments. Elena's decision to continue pursuing educational leadership despite the personal costs reflected her commitment to serving students and families whose needs transcended her individual circumstances. She recognized that retreating from public service would punish the communities she served while rewarding those who had attempted to destroy her career through false accusations. The investigation and its aftermath strengthened Elena's resolve to pursue systemic educational improvements, while developing strategies for protecting herself from future attacks that might exploit personal relationships or professional vulnerabilities. She learned to maintain appropriate boundaries between family interactions and professional responsibilities, while continuing to value authentic relationships that supported her personal well-being and professional effectiveness. Elena's approach to family relationships evolved to include protective measures that prevented the sharing of confidential professional information, while maintaining authentic emotional connections with family members who demonstrated genuine support and loyalty. She developed skills for navigating complex family dynamics without compromising professional integrity or institutional responsibilities. The experience also influenced Elena's leadership style and decision-making processes within educational settings. She became more strategic about building coalitions and managing potential opposition, while maintaining authentic commitment to evidence-based policies and practices that served student interests rather than adult convenience or political considerations. Elena's resilience during this period demonstrated the emotional strength and professional competence that would later enable her to serve effectively as school board president, despite ongoing family complications and political pressures. She learned to separate personal disappointments from professional responsibilities, while maintaining optimism about human nature and institutional change. The betrayal that could have destroyed Elena's career instead strengthened her character and clarified her priorities regarding authentic relationships and meaningful work. She emerged from the crisis with enhanced understanding of leadership challenges and improved skills for navigating complex political environments while maintaining focus on student achievement and educational equity. Elena's family relationships gradually stabilized through honest communication and mutual recognition of the need for appropriate boundaries between personal and professional spheres. David eventually acknowledged the inappropriateness of his actions and accepted responsibility for the damage he had caused, though full restoration of trust required years of consistent behavior that demonstrated genuine respect for Elena's professional choices and achievements. The experience provided Elena with authentic understanding of how personal conflicts could interfere with institutional effectiveness, while teaching her strategies for maintaining professional focus despite family complications. These lessons would prove invaluable during her tenure as school board president, when political pressures and community conflicts required emotional resilience and strategic thinking. Elena's response to betrayal by someone she had trusted completely demonstrated the character traits that would enable her to serve effectively in elected office. Despite ongoing opposition and criticism from stakeholders who disagreed with her policies or resented her influence within the educational system, the crisis also strengthened Elena's appreciation for genuine supporters and allies who provided authentic encouragement during difficult periods. She learned to distinguish between conditional relationships that depended on her success and authentic connections that persisted despite professional challenges and personal disappointments. Elena's professional reputation recovered completely from the false accusations, with colleagues and community members recognizing that the investigation had confirmed her integrity, while revealing the malicious motivations of those who had attempted to damage her career. the experience enhanced rather than diminished her credibility among stakeholders who valued ethical leadership and evidence-based decision-making. The lessons learned during this period of professional and personal crisis would inform Elena's approach to governance and policy development throughout her tenure as school board member and president. She understood the importance of transparent communication, ethical decision-making, and strategic coalition building, while maintaining authentic commitment to serving student interests despite political pressures and personal costs. Elena's transformation during this period reflected the development of emotional wisdom and professional maturity that enabled her to pursue ambitious goals while maintaining perspective about the temporary nature of both successes and setbacks. She learned to find meaning in service rather than recognition, while building sustainable practices that supported long-term effectiveness rather than short-term validation. The betrayal that threatened to end Elena's educational career instead became the foundation for enhanced resilience and strategic thinking that would enable her to achieve greater impact through subsequent leadership positions. She emerged from the crisis with clearer understanding of her authentic purpose and improved skills for pursuing meaningful goals, despite opposition and disappointment from unexpected sources. The Monday morning following the investigation's conclusion marked the beginning of Elena's strategic reconstruction of both her professional relationships and personal boundaries. Standing in her office at district headquarters, surrounded by files that had been scrutinized for evidence of wrongdoing that did not exist, Elena made fundamental decisions about how she would approach leadership, family dynamics, and institutional change for the remainder of her career. The vindication had been complete and public, with Superintendent Dr. Sullivan issuing a formal statement confirming Elena's ethical conduct and professional competence while acknowledging the district's confidence in her continued leadership. However, Elena understood that recovering from false accusations required more than official exoneration. She needed to rebuild trust with colleagues who had witnessed the investigation, reassert her authority within the district hierarchy, and establish new frameworks for managing the intersection between personal relationships and professional responsibilities. Elena's first strategic decision involved compartmentalization of family interactions to prevent future exploitation of personal information for professional sabotage. She instituted communication protocols that maintained authentic emotional connections with family members, while protecting confidential institutional information that could be weaponized by individuals who might not share her professional interests or ethical standards. The approach required careful navigation of family expectations and established patterns of information sharing that had previously included unrestricted discussion of Elena's professional challenges and achievements. She developed diplomatic methods for redirecting conversations away from sensitive topics while maintaining genuine engagement with family members who demonstrated consistent support and appropriate boundaries. Elena's relationship with David required particular attention and strategic management. The betrayal had fundamentally altered their sibling dynamic, creating necessity for new frameworks that acknowledged the damage while preserving family connections that remained valuable to both individuals and their extended family network. Elena chose forgiveness over permanent estrangement, but she implemented protective measures that prevented future vulnerability to similar attacks. The reconciliation process extended over several months and required multiple family meetings facilitated by their parents, who were deeply concerned about permanent damage to relationships they considered essential to family stability and well-being. David struggled initially with accepting responsibility for his actions, alternating between defensive justifications and expressions of regret that seemed motivated more by consequences than genuine understanding of the harm he had caused. Elena's approach to the reconciliation demonstrated the emotional maturity and strategic thinking that would later characterize her leadership style as school board president. She focused on establishing sustainable boundaries rather than extracting apologies, recognizing that David's psychological motivations for the betrayal reflected deep-seated insecurities that would require professional counseling to address effectively. The family healing process ultimately strengthened Elena's understanding of leadership dynamics and conflict resolution strategies that would prove invaluable in her subsequent governance responsibilities. She learned to separate personal emotions from strategic decision-making while maintaining authentic commitment to relationships and outcomes that served broader purposes beyond individual satisfaction or vindication. Elena's professional relationships within the district required careful rebuilding to restore the collaborative dynamics that had been disrupted by the investigation and its aftermath. Some colleagues had maintained complete confidence in Elena's integrity throughout the crisis, while others had adopted wait-and-see approaches that reflected uncertainty about her professional future and political viability within the district hierarchy. The restoration process involved systematic relationship rebuilding through consistent demonstration of competence, integrity, and collaborative leadership that addressed any lingering concerns about Elena's effectiveness or ethical standards. She initiated individual meetings with key stakeholders to discuss the investigation's conclusion, while focusing conversations on future initiatives and institutional improvements, rather than defensive explanations of past decisions. Elena's approach proved highly effective in restoring professional relationships and rebuilding the coalition of supporters who had been instrumental in her previous successes. Colleagues recognized that the investigation had actually confirmed Elena's exceptional ethical standards and administrative competence, while revealing the malicious motivations of those who had attempted to damage her reputation through false accusations. The experience enhanced Elena's credibility with stakeholders who valued integrity and resilience under pressure. Principals, teachers, and community leaders observed how Elena had navigated the crisis with professionalism and grace, while maintaining focus on student achievement and institutional improvement, rather than personal vindication or political maneuvering. Elena's response to the crisis became a defining characteristic of her leadership brand, demonstrating to current and future colleagues that she possessed the emotional strength and ethical foundation necessary for effective governance in complex political environments. The vindication strengthened rather than weakened her position within the district hierarchy and regional educational community. Superintendent Dr. Sullivan's confidence in Elena was demonstrated through expanded responsibilities and leadership opportunities that reflected his recognition of her exceptional capabilities and proven resilience. He assigned Elena to chair the district's Strategic Planning Committee, a high-profile position that involved developing long-term vision and policy frameworks for institutional development and community engagement. The strategic planning assignment represented both professional advancement and implicit endorsement of Elena's leadership potential within regional educational circles. The committee included representatives from multiple stakeholder groups and was responsible for developing comprehensive plans that would guide district decision-making for the subsequent 5-year period. Elena's leadership of the strategic planning process showcased her abilities in consensus building, data analysis, community engagement, and policy development, while demonstrating her capacity to manage complex projects that required coordination among diverse groups with varying interests and priorities. The final strategic plan received unanimous approval from the school board and recognition from state education officials as a model for comprehensive district planning. The strategic planning experience positioned Elena for consideration for additional leadership opportunities within the district and broader educational community. Her effective management of the committee and high-quality outcomes earned recognition from school board members who would later encourage her to seek elected office when board positions became available through normal rotation and term limits. Elena's enhanced reputation and demonstrated leadership capabilities led to invitations for participation in state-level committees and professional organizations that influenced educational policy and practice beyond the immediate district boundaries. These opportunities provided exposure to broader networks of educational leaders, while contributing to Elena's understanding of systemic challenges and reform strategies that operated across multiple institutional contexts. The state committee assignments required Elena to apply her analytical and collaborative skills to complex policy issues that affected thousands of students and educators throughout the region. Her contributions to committee work earned recognition from state education officials and positioned her as an emerging leader in regional educational reform efforts. Elena's involvement in state-level policy development provided valuable experience in navigating political environments and building coalitions among stakeholders with diverse perspectives and competing interests. She learned to translate research-based recommendations into politically viable policy proposals, while maintaining focus on evidence-based practices that served student interests rather than adult preferences or political convenience. The policy experience would prove invaluable during Elena's subsequent tenure as school board member and president, as she developed skills in strategic communication, coalition building, and political negotiation that enhanced her effectiveness in elected governance roles. The state committee work also expanded her professional network to include influential leaders who would later provide support and guidance during challenging political situations. Elena's growing reputation and expanded responsibilities led to recognition within professional associations and academic institutions that valued her combination of practical experience and scholarly preparation. She was invited to present at national conferences and contribute to publications that disseminated innovative practices and research-based recommendations to educational leaders throughout the country. The professional recognition validated Elena's approach to educational leadership, while providing platforms for sharing the lessons learned through her challenging experiences and successful outcomes. Her presentations and publications emphasize the importance of ethical decision-making, evidence-based practice, and resilient leadership in complex institutional environments. Elena's scholarship and professional contributions attracted attention from universities seeking adjunct faculty with practical experience and academic credentials. She accepted teaching opportunities that allowed her to share her expertise with aspiring educational leaders while continuing her full-time administrative responsibilities within the district. The teaching assignments provided intellectual stimulation and professional satisfaction, while connecting Elena with emerging leaders who would later become colleagues and collaborators in regional educational reform efforts. Her students appreciated her authentic understanding of leadership challenges and her ability to connect theoretical knowledge with practical application in real-world settings. Elena's academic involvement also facilitated ongoing professional development through access to current research and innovative practices that informed her administrative decision-making and policy recommendations. She maintained currency with emerging trends and evidence-based strategies that enhanced her effectiveness as an educational leader and policy developer. The combination of expanding professional responsibilities, growing recognition, and enhanced influence created opportunities for Elena to pursue her long-term goal of seeking elected office through school board candidacy. Colleagues and community leaders began encouraging her to consider electoral politics as a means of expanding her impact on educational policy and institutional improvement. Elena's initial reluctance to pursue elected office reflected careful consideration of the additional responsibilities and public scrutiny that would accompany governance roles. She understood that effective school board service required skills in political communication, public relations, and community engagement that differed from administrative leadership within institutional hierarchies. However, Elena's experience during the investigation and its aftermath had demonstrated her capacity to maintain professional effectiveness despite personal attacks and political pressures. The crisis had tested her resilience and strategic thinking in ways that confirmed her ability to navigate complex political environments while maintaining authentic commitment to student-centered decision-making. Elena's decision to pursue school board candidacy represented the culmination of strategic career planning that had begun during her graduate studies and continued through her progression from assistant principal to district administrator. The electoral opportunity provided means for applying her comprehensive experience and proven leadership capabilities to governance challenges that would influence educational policy and practice throughout the region. The campaign preparation required Elena to develop new skills in public communication, fundraising, and political organization, while building coalitions among diverse community groups with varying educational priorities and political perspectives. She approached the electoral challenge with characteristic thoroughness and strategic thinking that had characterized her professional development throughout her career. Elena's campaign message emphasized her proven track record of educational improvement, her research-based approach to policy development, and her authentic commitment to serving all students regardless of their backgrounds or circumstances. She articulated a vision for educational excellence that balanced accountability with support, innovation with tradition, and efficiency with equity. The campaign experience provided valuable preparation for the governance responsibilities that would follow electoral success. Elena learned to communicate complex educational concepts to diverse audiences while building trust with stakeholders who would evaluate her performance as an elected official based on outcomes rather than intentions or credentials. Elena's electoral success represented validation of her leadership capabilities and community confidence in her ability to serve effectively in governance roles that would influence educational policy and institutional practices. The victory provided mandate for pursuing the systemic improvements that had motivated her career-long commitment to educational leadership and social justice. The transition from district administrator to elected school board member required adjustment to different accountability structures and governance processes, while maintaining Elena's core commitment to evidence-based decision-making and student-centered policies. She approached the new role with characteristic preparation and determination to apply her comprehensive experience to the challenges and opportunities of elected leadership. Elena's early performance as a school board member demonstrated her ability to contribute effectively to governance processes while building positive relationships with fellow board members, district administration, and community stakeholders. Her combination of educational expertise and collaborative approach earned respect from colleagues and positioned her for future leadership opportunities within the board structure. The foundation years of professional development, the crisis that tested her resilience, and the strategic rebuilding that demonstrated her leadership capabilities had prepared Elena comprehensively for the governance challenges and opportunities that would define her service as school board president. Her journey from scholarship recipient to elected educational leader illustrated the transformative power of persistent excellence and authentic commitment to serving others, while pursuing meaningful goals that transcended personal advancement. Elena's story provided inspiration and practical guidance for other educational leaders facing similar challenges, while demonstrating that professional setbacks and personal betrayals could become sources of strength when approached with integrity, strategic thinking, and unwavering commitment to authentic purpose and service to others. Elena Martinez entered the ornate chambers of the Riverside County School District boardroom on the third Tuesday evening in January, carrying a leather portfolio that contained comprehensive research on every agenda item scheduled for discussion during her first official meeting as an elected school board member. The mahogany paneling and formal portraits of previous board presidents created an atmosphere of institutional gravitas that reflected the serious responsibilities she had accepted through her electoral victory 3 months earlier. The transition from district administrator to elected governance required fundamental adjustments in perspective, accountability structures, and decision-making processes that challenged Elena's established professional practices, while providing opportunities to influence educational policy from a completely different institutional position. Her comprehensive understanding of district operations, combined with her proven leadership capabilities and authentic commitment to student achievement, positioned her to contribute meaningfully to board deliberations from her first day in office. Elena's preparation for board service had been characteristically thorough and strategic. She had studied governance best practices, reviewed board policies and procedures, analyzed budget documents and academic achievement data, and met individually with each sitting board member to understand their perspectives on district priorities and improvement strategies. The preparation reflected her recognition that effective governance required different skills and knowledge than administrative leadership, despite her extensive experience in educational management. The other board members included Dr. Thomas Richardson, a retired university professor, serving his second term as a steady voice for academic excellence and fiscal responsibility. Patricia Washington represented the business community perspective, bringing expertise in organizational management and strategic planning from her successful consulting practice. James Foster had been elected as a parent advocate focused on special education services and student support programs. Maria Santos brought community organizing experience and passionate advocacy for English language learners and economically disadvantaged students. Elena's initial interactions with her board colleagues revealed the complex dynamics that characterized collaborative governance in politically sensitive environments. Each member brought distinct perspectives, constituencies, and priorities that reflected the diverse stakeholder groups within the community, creating necessities for negotiation, compromise, and coalition building that differed significantly from administrative decision-making processes. The board's relationship with Superintendent Dr. James Sullivan required careful navigation, as Elena transitioned from his subordinate as district administrator to his evaluator and policy supervisor as an elected board member. Dr. Sullivan approached the change dynamic with professionalism and respect, recognizing Elena's expertise while adjusting to new accountability structures that placed her in governance rather than implementation roles. Elena's first significant contribution to board deliberations involved the review of proposed budget allocations for the upcoming fiscal year. Her administrative experience provided unique insights into the practical implications of funding decisions, enabling her to identify potential consequences that other board members might not have considered without direct operational experience. The budget discussion revealed competing priorities among board members and community stakeholder groups, requiring careful analysis of educational impact, fiscal sustainability, and political feasibility. Elena's approach emphasized evidence-based decision-making that prioritized student achievement while acknowledging community concerns about tax burdens and resource allocation efficiency. Elena advocated for increased funding for early intervention programs based on research demonstrating their long-term cost-effectiveness and positive outcomes for student achievement. Her presentation included comprehensive data analysis and case studies from similar districts that had successfully implemented comparable initiatives, providing compelling evidence for investment despite initial implementation costs. The budget deliberations also addressed controversial questions about technology integration, facility maintenance, and personnel allocation that required board members to balance educational priorities with fiscal constraints and community expectations. Elena's contributions reflected her comprehensive understanding of district operations while demonstrating her ability to translate administrative knowledge into governance decisions that served broader institutional and community interests. Elena's expertise proved particularly valuable during discussions about curriculum adoption processes that had been complicated by community disagreements about content standards and instructional materials. Her experience with evidence-based curriculum evaluation enabled her to guide board discussions toward objective criteria that prioritized educational effectiveness, while addressing legitimate community concerns about content appropriateness and cultural sensitivity. The curriculum discussions required diplomatic navigation of competing perspectives from parents, teachers, and community groups, with varying opinions about educational priorities and instructional approaches. Elena's leadership helped the board develop evaluation frameworks that maintained academic rigor while ensuring community input and transparency in decision-making processes. Elena's approach to curriculum policy demonstrated her ability to apply research-based knowledge to politically sensitive decisions, while building consensus among stakeholder groups with different priorities and perspectives. Her contributions enhanced the quality of board deliberations while maintaining respectful engagement with community members who expressed concerns about proposed changes. The personnel evaluation process presented additional challenges as Elena participated in superintendent evaluation procedures that required assessment of Dr. Sullivan's leadership performance. The situation demanded careful balance between her positive professional relationship with Dr. Sullivan and her governance responsibility to provide objective evaluation based on established performance criteria and district improvement goals. Elena's participation in the superintendent evaluation process demonstrated her ability to maintain professional objectivity while applying her administrative experience to governance responsibilities. Her contributions to the evaluation were comprehensive and fair, focusing on measurable outcomes and evidence-based assessment rather than personal relationships or subjective preferences. The evaluation process strengthened Elena's understanding of governance accountability structures while reinforcing her commitment to evidence-based decision-making that served institutional rather than individual interests. Her approach earned respect from board colleagues and community stakeholders who recognized her ability to navigate complex professional relationships with integrity and objectivity. Elena's first year of board service included participation in strategic planning processes that required long-term thinking about district development and improvement priorities. Her administrative experience provided valuable insights into implementation challenges and resource requirements that informed board discussions about achievable goals and realistic timelines for institutional change. The strategic planning process engaged diverse community stakeholders in identifying educational priorities and improvement strategies that reflected shared values and common goals. Elena's leadership contributed to productive dialogue among groups with different perspectives, while maintaining focus on evidence-based approaches that would produce measurable improvements in student achievement and institutional effectiveness. Elena's contributions to strategic planning demonstrated her ability to facilitate collaborative decision-making processes that honored diverse perspectives while maintaining commitment to academic excellence and educational equity. Her approach helped the board develop comprehensive plans that balanced ambitious goals with practical implementation considerations. The community engagement aspects of board service required Elena to develop new skills in public communication and stakeholder relations that differed from her previous administrative responsibilities. Board meetings included public comment periods where community members expressed concerns, asked questions, and advocated for specific policy positions that required diplomatic responses and thoughtful consideration. Elena's approach to community engagement emphasized respectful listening, transparent communication, and evidence-based responses that addressed constituent concerns while maintaining focus on district-wide rather than individual interests. Her responses demonstrated comprehensive knowledge of educational issues while acknowledging legitimate community perspectives and concerns. The public communication requirements of board service challenged Elena to translate complex educational concepts and policy considerations into accessible language that diverse community audiences could understand and evaluate. Her effectiveness in public communication enhanced her credibility with constituents, while building trust and confidence in board decision-making processes. Elena's first-year performance as a board member earned recognition from colleagues and community stakeholders who appreciated her combination of educational expertise, collaborative approach, and commitment to transparent governance. Her contributions enhanced the quality of board deliberations while maintaining positive relationships with diverse stakeholder groups and institutional partners. The recognition Elena received during her initial board service positioned her for consideration for leadership roles within the board structure. Her colleagues recognized her expertise, work ethic, and collaborative leadership style as valuable assets for guiding board operations and representing the district in regional and state forums. Elena's interest in board leadership reflected her commitment to advancing educational improvements that would benefit all students while maintaining public confidence in district governance and institutional effectiveness. She understood that board leadership required additional responsibilities and public visibility that would expand her influence while increasing accountability and scrutiny of her performance. The opportunity to serve as board president emerged during Elena's second year when the existing president announced his intention to step down due to professional obligations that would limit his availability for board responsibilities. The position required election by board colleagues and represented the highest governance role within the district structure. Elena's candidacy for board president received unanimous support from her colleagues, who recognized her exceptional qualifications and proven effectiveness during her initial board service. The election reflected confidence in her leadership capabilities, while acknowledging her comprehensive understanding of both governance processes and educational administration. The transition to board president required Elena to assume additional responsibilities, including meeting facilitation, public representation, and coordination with district administration on policy implementation and community relations. The role positioned her as the primary spokesperson for board decisions while requiring diplomatic management of relationships among board members, district staff, and community stakeholders. Elena's preparation for board presidency involved comprehensive review of governance best practices, policy development frameworks, and community engagement strategies that would enhance board effectiveness while maintaining public confidence in district leadership. Her approach emphasized collaborative decision-making, transparent communication, and evidence-based policy development that served student achievement and community interests. Elena's inaugural address as board president articulated her vision for district development and improvement priorities that reflected shared community values, while acknowledging the challenges and opportunities facing public education in rapidly changing social and economic environments. Her presentation demonstrated comprehensive understanding of educational issues, while expressing optimism about the district's capacity for continued improvement and innovation. The address received positive responses from community stakeholders who appreciated Elena's combination of educational expertise, governance experience, and authentic commitment to serving all students regardless of their backgrounds or circumstances. Her leadership approach emphasized accountability, equity, and excellence while maintaining respect for diverse perspectives and community input. Elena's early months as board president demonstrated her ability to facilitate productive board meetings, manage complex policy discussions, and represent district interests in regional forums and state advocacy efforts. Her leadership enhanced board effectiveness while maintaining positive relationships with district administration and community stakeholders. The governance experience that Elena accumulated during her board service provided comprehensive preparation for the leadership challenges that would define her tenure as president. Her progression from administrator to board member to board president illustrated the development of expertise in democratic governance that complemented her administrative experience while expanding her influence on educational policy and institutional development. Elena's success in elected governance reflected her ability to apply comprehensive educational knowledge to policy development while building coalitions among diverse stakeholder groups with varying priorities and perspectives. Her leadership demonstrated that effective governance required combination of technical expertise, political skill, and authentic commitment to serving public rather than personal interests. The foundation that Elena established during her initial board service would enable her to pursue ambitious improvements in educational policy and institutional practices during her tenure as board president. Her comprehensive preparation and proven effectiveness positioned her to advocate for systematic changes that would benefit current and future students, while maintaining community confidence in district leadership and governance. Elena Martinez stood before the assembled community stakeholders at the Riverside County Educational Summit, her prepared remarks reflecting 18 months of strategic planning and coalition building that had positioned the district for comprehensive transformation. As board president, she had learned to balance her extensive educational expertise with the diplomatic requirements of elected leadership, crafting policy initiatives that advance student achievement while maintaining broad community support across diverse political and demographic constituencies. The summit represented the culmination of Elena's vision for systematic educational improvement through evidence-based reforms that addressed achievement gaps while strengthening academic programs for all students. The initiative required coordination among multiple stakeholder groups, including teachers, administrators, parents, community leaders, and business partners, who would contribute resources and expertise to support implementation of ambitious improvement strategies. Elena's presentation outlined comprehensive reforms in curriculum standards, assessment practices, professional development programs, and community engagement initiatives that would transform educational delivery while maintaining fiscal responsibility and accountability to taxpayers. The proposal reflected months of research, consultation, and strategic planning that demonstrated Elena's capacity to translate educational vision into practical policy frameworks that could achieve measurable results. The audience included several hundred community members representing diverse perspectives on educational priorities and improvement strategies. Elena's challenge involved communicating complex educational concepts in accessible language while building consensus among stakeholders with varying levels of educational background and different political perspectives on appropriate roles for public education in community development. Elena's remarks emphasized the moral imperative of providing excellent educational opportunities for all students regardless of their socioeconomic backgrounds or family circumstances. Her presentation included compelling data demonstrating the long-term economic and social benefits of educational investment, while acknowledging legitimate community concerns about cost containment and accountability for public resources. The summit discussions revealed the sophisticated understanding Elena had developed regarding the intersection of educational policy and community politics. Her responses to questions and concerns demonstrated comprehensive knowledge of implementation challenges while maintaining optimistic confidence in the district's capacity to achieve ambitious improvement goals through systematic effort and community partnership. Following the summit, Elena returned to her office at the district headquarters to review feedback and plan next steps for policy implementation. The late evening hours provided quiet time for strategic thinking and documentation that had become essential components of her leadership routine. Elena's approach to governance emphasized thorough preparation and systematic analysis that enabled informed decision-making under complex political pressures. Elena's phone rang at 9:15. Displaying David's contact information and interrupting her policy review. The timing was typical of David's communication patterns, which often involved evening calls that assumed Elena's availability despite her extensive professional responsibilities and governance commitments. Elena answered with professional courtesy while maintaining awareness of the boundary management strategies she had developed following the previous crisis in their relationship. David's voice carried excitement and anticipation as he explained the purpose of his call. Miguel's academic performance had improved dramatically during the current semester, with his teachers reporting enhanced engagement and responsibility that reflected the intervention strategies implemented following the parent-teacher conference, where Elena's identity had been revealed. David wanted to express gratitude while requesting Elena's advice about educational planning for Miguel's high school transition. The conversation presented Elena with an opportunity to apply her educational expertise to benefit her nephew, while testing the effectiveness of the boundary management strategies she had developed to protect professional information from potential misuse. Elena provided general guidance about high school preparation while avoiding specific details about district policies or administrative decisions that could be exploited if David's psychological patterns reverted to previous competitive dynamics. Elena's approach to the conversation reflected the emotional maturity and strategic thinking she had developed through her experiences with betrayal and recovery. She maintained authentic care for Miguel's educational success while protecting herself from potential vulnerability that could arise from sharing confidential information about district operations or future policy initiatives. David's gratitude appeared genuine and reflected his growing recognition of Elena's professional expertise and the value of her guidance for educational decisions affecting his family. The conversation concluded with David's invitation for Elena to attend Miguel's upcoming academic awards ceremony, where he would receive recognition for improved performance and leadership development. Elena accepted the invitation while maintaining appropriate expectations about family dynamics and public interactions that could create complications for her governance responsibilities. Her decision reflected commitment to family relationships while acknowledging the necessity of managing public appearances and political considerations that accompanied elected leadership positions. The academic ceremony occurred 3 weeks later at Jefferson Middle School, where Elena had initially been recognized as board president during the parent-teacher conference that had transformed family perceptions of her professional achievements. The event provided opportunity for Elena to observe the positive outcomes of educational interventions, while maintaining low-profile presence that avoided drawing attention to her board leadership role. Elena's attendance at the ceremony demonstrated her commitment to family relationships, while illustrating the complex navigation required for public officials who must balance personal connections with professional responsibilities. Her presence supported Miguel's achievement while avoiding political complications that could arise from high-profile board president participation in routine school events. Miguel's recognition for academic improvement and peer leadership reflected the effectiveness of intervention strategies that Elena had helped design through her board presidency and previous administrative experience. The success validated Elena's educational philosophy while providing tangible evidence of positive outcomes that could result from systematic attention to individual student needs and appropriate support services. The ceremony also provided Elena with opportunity to observe Jefferson Middle School's implementation of district-wide improvement initiatives that she had supported through board policy development. The school's positive culture and evident student engagement reflected successful application of evidence-based practices that were being replicated throughout the district under Elena's governance leadership. Principal Sarah Chen approached Elena following the ceremony to express appreciation for the district's enhanced support for intervention programs and professional development initiatives that had improved teacher effectiveness and student outcomes. The conversation illustrated the positive feedback relationships that Elena had helped establish between governance policy and school-level implementation. Elena's interaction with Principal Chen demonstrated her capacity to maintain appropriate boundaries between her personal family connections and her professional governance responsibilities. Their discussion focused on educational outcomes and policy effectiveness rather than individual student situations, reflecting Elena's understanding of ethical requirements and conflict of interest considerations that governed elected officials. The successful management of personal and professional dynamics at Miguel's ceremony reinforced Elena's confidence in the boundary management strategies she had developed through previous challenging experiences. Her approach enabled authentic family participation while protecting her governance effectiveness and maintaining public trust in her objective decision-making capabilities. Elena's drive home from the ceremony provided reflection time about the progress she had achieved in rebuilding family relationships while establishing herself as an effective governance leader. The evening represented successful integration of personal and professional identities that had been complicated by previous betrayal and the ongoing complexities of elected leadership in a politically diverse community. The following weeks brought intensified focus on implementing the educational reforms that Elena had championed through the community summit and subsequent board deliberations. The initiatives required careful coordination among administrative staff, teaching faculty, and community partners, while maintaining public communication that sustained political support for ambitious improvement efforts. Elena's leadership during the implementation phase demonstrated her exceptional organizational capabilities and strategic communication skills. She facilitated productive relationships among stakeholder groups, while maintaining oversight of complex policy initiatives that required systematic monitoring and adjustment to ensure effective outcomes. The reform implementation also required Elena to manage potential opposition from community members who questioned the necessity or effectiveness of proposed changes. Her responses to critics emphasized evidence-based rationale for policy decisions while acknowledging legitimate concerns about implementation challenges and resource requirements. Elena's approach to managing opposition reflected the diplomatic skills she had developed through her governance experience and previous administrative challenges. She maintained respectful engagement with critics while defending policy decisions based on educational research, and demonstrated best practices from successful districts with similar demographic characteristics. The early outcomes of Elena's reform initiatives exceeded expectations in several key areas, including student engagement, teacher satisfaction, and family participation in educational planning processes. The positive results validated Elena's leadership approach while building momentum for continued improvement efforts that would require sustained commitment and community support. Elena's success as board president attracted attention from regional and state educational organizations that recognized her innovative leadership and effective governance practices. The recognition provided opportunities for Elena to share her expertise through conference presentations and policy consultation that expanded her influence beyond the immediate district boundaries. The professional recognition also created potential complications for family dynamics, as Elena's increasing visibility and public acknowledgement of her achievements could trigger previous patterns of competition and resentment that had led to David's betrayal during her administrative career. Elena remained vigilant about protecting herself while maintaining authentic family relationships. Elena's approach to managing increasing public recognition involved strategic communication that emphasized collective achievements and collaborative leadership, rather than individual accomplishments. Her public statements consistently highlighted the contributions of teachers, administrators, and community partners, while minimizing personal credit for successful outcomes. The strategy proved effective in maintaining family relationships while building sustainable political support for continued educational improvements. Elena's leadership style emphasized institutional success rather than personal advancement, creating positive associations with her governance while reducing potential triggers for family conflict or community criticism. Elena's second year as board president included navigation of budget challenges that required difficult decisions about resource allocation and program priorities. The economic pressures demanded strategic thinking about maintaining educational quality while managing fiscal constraints that limited options for new initiatives or expanded services. Elena's leadership during the budget crisis demonstrated her comprehensive understanding of both educational priorities and fiscal realities that governed public sector organizations. Her approach emphasized protecting core academic programs while identifying efficiency improvements that could sustain quality education during resource limitations. The budget deliberations also required Elena to manage competing demands from various stakeholder groups who advocated for different priorities and resource allocations. Her facilitation of these discussions reflected diplomatic skills and ethical leadership that maintained community confidence in board decision-making processes, despite inevitable disappointments for some constituencies. Elena's effectiveness during challenging budget negotiations reinforced her reputation for principled leadership and comprehensive expertise that served district interests rather than political expedience or personal advancement. Her approach strengthened community trust while positioning the district for continued improvement when economic conditions improved and additional resources became available. The experience of leading through fiscal constraints provided Elena with enhanced understanding of governance challenges that would inform her future policy development and strategic planning initiatives. Her successful navigation of budget difficulties demonstrated resilience and practical wisdom that prepared her for continued leadership during inevitable future challenges and opportunities. Elena's comprehensive success as board president reflected the integration of her educational expertise, governance skills, and personal growth that had been developed through professional advancement and challenging personal experiences. Her leadership demonstrated the potential for elected officials to pursue ambitious improvements while maintaining ethical standards and community support that enabled sustainable progress toward shared goals and values. Elena Martinez examined the formal invitation that had arrived via certified mail from the Governor's Office of Educational Excellence, announcing her selection as recipient of the State Educational Leadership Award for outstanding contributions to public education governance and policy innovation. The recognition represented the highest honor available to elected school board officials and acknowledged Elena's exceptional effectiveness in implementing systematic improvements that had transformed educational outcomes while maintaining exemplary fiscal stewardship and community engagement. The award selection committee had reviewed governance practices and achievement outcomes from school districts throughout the state, identifying Elena's leadership of the Riverside County School District as exemplary in categories including academic improvement, equity advancement, community partnership development, and innovative policy implementation. The comprehensive evaluation process had included analysis of student achievement data, budget management practices, community engagement metrics, and stakeholder satisfaction surveys that demonstrated measurable excellence across multiple performance indicators. Elena's initial response to the recognition involved characteristic humility and deflection of personal credit toward the collaborative efforts of district administrators, teaching faculty, and community partners who had contributed to the successful implementation of comprehensive reform initiatives. Her perspective reflected genuine understanding that institutional excellence required sustained commitment from multiple stakeholder groups rather than individual leadership alone, despite the crucial role her governance vision and strategic coordination had played in achieving documented improvements. The award ceremony was scheduled for the state capitol during the annual Educational Leadership Conference, where Elena would deliver a keynote address about effective governance practices and present the policy frameworks that had enabled her district's exceptional performance. The speaking opportunity represented significant professional recognition, while providing platform for sharing evidence-based strategies that could benefit educational leaders throughout the region. Elena's preparation for the keynote presentation involved comprehensive analysis of the specific policies, practices, and partnership structures that had contributed to measurable improvements in student achievement, teacher retention, family engagement, and community satisfaction. Her research methodology emphasized data-driven evaluation of outcomes rather than subjective assessments, providing credible foundation for recommendations that other districts could adapt to their particular circumstances and challenges. The presentation development process also required Elena to consider the political implications of increased visibility and recognition that could affect her governance effectiveness and family relationships. Her previous experience with professional success had demonstrated that public achievement could create unexpected complications in personal relationships, while generating new expectations and responsibilities that extended beyond immediate institutional boundaries. Elena's decision to accept the award and speaking engagement reflected careful consideration of potential benefits and risks associated with enhanced professional profile. She concluded that the opportunity to influence educational policy and practice throughout the state justified the personal costs and additional responsibilities that would accompany increased recognition and public attention. The weeks preceding the award ceremony brought numerous interview requests from educational publications, regional newspapers, and professional organizations seeking Elena's perspectives on governance best practices and policy innovation. Her responses emphasized systematic approaches to improvement rather than individual leadership qualities, maintaining focus on replicable strategies that could achieve similar outcomes in diverse institutional contexts. Elena's media interactions demonstrated sophisticated understanding of public communication requirements, while maintaining authentic commitment to educational improvement rather than personal advancement. Her interviews consistently highlighted collaborative achievements and evidence-based practices while avoiding self-promotional rhetoric that could undermine her credibility or create political complications within her own community. The increased attention and recognition also attracted inquiries from political organizations and advocacy groups seeking Elena's support for broader policy initiatives and electoral candidates. Her responses reflected careful consideration of appropriate boundaries for elected officials while maintaining focus on educational issues rather than partisan political activities that could compromise her effectiveness as a local governance leader. Elena's approach to managing political solicitations emphasized her commitment to nonpartisan educational advocacy that served student interests rather than party affiliations or ideological positions. Her stance earned respect from diverse political constituencies while protecting her ability to build bipartisan coalitions around evidence-based educational policies and practices. The family dynamics surrounding Elena's state recognition presented complex challenges that required diplomatic navigation of congratulatory expressions and underlying competitive tensions. David's response to news of the award included genuine pride, mixed with subtle expressions of concern about Elena's increasing prominence and potential implications for family gatherings and social interactions within their shared community. Elena's parents expressed unconditional celebration of their daughter's achievements, while acknowledging some bewilderment about the scope and significance of her professional accomplishments. Rosa Martinez had spent decades supporting her children's educational advancement, without fully comprehending the institutional influence and policy authority that Elena had achieved through her governance leadership and administrative expertise. The generational differences in understanding Elena's professional significance reflected broader challenges that many first-generation college graduates experience, when their achievements exceed their family's frames of reference for career success and community recognition. Elena's response emphasized appreciation for family support, while providing gentle education about the nature and importance of public education, governance, and policy development. Elena's sister Carmen, who had pursued successful career advancement in healthcare administration, provided particularly meaningful support and understanding of the challenges associated with professional excellence in complex institutional environments. Their conversations about leadership responsibilities and work-life balance reflected shared experiences of women navigating demanding careers while maintaining family relationships and community connections. The sisterly relationship had strengthened significantly following Elena's navigation of David's betrayal and subsequent family reconciliation processes. Carmen's perspective provided valuable emotional support, while offering practical insights about managing professional recognition and family expectations that could create conflicting demands on time and attention. Elena's preparation for the state ceremony required careful attention to wardrobe selection, speech preparation, and logistical coordination that reflected the formal protocol associated with gubernatorial recognition events. Her approach emphasized professional appropriateness and dignified representation of her district and community, rather than personal fashion preferences or individual expression. The ceremony took place in the state capitol rotunda, where Governor Patricia Caldwell presented the Educational Leadership Award before an audience that included state education officials, regional superintendents, school board presidents, and educational advocacy organization representatives. Elena's acceptance remarks emphasized collaborative achievements and systemic approaches to improvement, while expressing gratitude for the opportunity to serve her community through elected governance. Elena's keynote address the following morning provided detailed analysis of the policy frameworks and implementation strategies that had enabled her district's documented improvements in academic achievement, operational efficiency, and community engagement. Her presentation included specific data points and outcome measurements that demonstrated the effectiveness of evidence-based governance practices, while acknowledging the adaptation requirements for different demographic and economic contexts. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.